Today we've popped out to Hayes Police Station, and no, we're not in trouble, well, hopefully not. We're chatting about scams and fraud. We're going to find out the difference between a scam and a fraud, and how much money is lost to fraud each year. We'll also hear some examples of common scams, some tips to protect ourselves against being scammed, and also how to report scams. We've got three guests today. Firstly, PC Helen Low is the designated ward officer for Charville Ward. Helen's going to be telling us about some scams happening locally. Then we've got two community bankers, Mark Mullally and Sally Schofield, with lots of experience between them to talk about common scams, especially in relation to money and banking. Hi everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Mark, can we start with you? You and Sally are both community bankers, and you're both with NatWest. Can you explain what your role is?
Yes, certainly. Well, basically, NatWest is a partner to the Trading Standards Friends Against Scams initiative. And that's basically an initiative to protect and prevent people from falling victim of scams. So our role is what we call a community banker. And effectively, that falls into two parts. But the fraud and scam awareness part is the community side. So basically, part of my role is to go out into the wider community. I'm not just looking to talk to NatWest customers. It's basically everybody in the community we're looking to support with regards to fraud and scam awareness. The way we would do that would normally be to link up with an audience. So we're looking for any groups that might be interested to hear what we're saying. So that could be like an older person's coffee morning group, Women's Institute. It could be a group of scouts. It could be just a general sort of charitable organisation whereby we can go along and talk to them about fraud and scam awareness. All the material that we use is from the Trading Standards Initiative. We don't promote NatWest in any way. All our information is impartial and it's free of charge.
Okay, so any local organisations looking for speakers, do get in touch with Mark. Now, Helen, you have some information for us on some local scams in our area.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I'm the dedicated ward officer for Charville, which is opposite Hayes Police Station. And it's just come to our notice that we have had reports of different types of scams. In particular, we've had the HMRC scam, where they telephone call a resident and chat to them and say that they're actually due a tax refund, and they require some money, and there's an arrest warrant out for them, which is very frightening. I've actually had one of those personally at home.
And what other scams are quite common locally?
The other reported one we've had, which has been going on for a long time, is when they say a telephone call comes into your home address and they say that I'm a police officer from either Paddington Station or Westminster Station, all different stations, a particular person, and they've found their documentation or they've found their property in a police station in London, and eventually they'll get to details where they'll say they want your details to enable to extract money from your account. Again, that's false. They may say, I'll give you a different telephone number for you to ring back to confirm my identity, but which the person would do, but they manage to keep the line open. So when you do ring back, it's the same person they're talking to. So you do have to be aware of that as well.
And I assume when people do get scammed, they're ashamed to report it?
I think so, definitely, yeah. I think people get embarrassed because they don't want to say what's happened to them. They don't want to feel vulnerable. These people are very clever what they do, and they do it all the time. And it happens to everybody, so it's just not vulnerable people. It's not just elderly people. I mean, I know police officers have been scammed, professional people have been scammed, elderly people have been scammed. So you do need to know what to do in these circumstances.
And we'll run through a few tips on how you can report scams and what to do later on. But Mark, from the banking side of things, give us a few figures about how much is lost to fraud each year.
With regards to some statistics around scams at the moment, 53% of people over the age of 65 have been targeted. Average age of a victim is 75. Also, put that into financial terms, the first 6 months of last year, so between January and June of last year, £500 million was lost through fraud through UK bank accounts. Of that, 145 million is what we call authorised push payments, whereby someone's actually made the transfer to the criminal. They've either been coerced or tricked into making that payment. Now, one of the messages that we get across when we go out to talk to people is that the difference between a fraud and a scam is that a fraud is when someone's taken money from your bank account, whereas a scam is basically you've transferred that money. And unfortunately, because there is a grey area in between, regardless who you bank with, you're not guaranteed to get that money back if you've been scammed. So again, our sort of role in this is to go out to the communities to explain people about the different types of frauds and scams that are happening. On the back of it, though, we also encourage people to talk amongst themselves. Only 5% of people that have been victims of a scam will actually talk about it. So therefore, we're looking to encourage people to share their stories as well, to raise awareness, to protect their next door neighbour, to protect their elderly relative.
I think most importantly is that when this does happen, you do need to tell other people it's happened, because the more people that are aware and know what to do, the better.
Sally, what's some examples of scams that you see regularly?
A lot of our customers receive texts and emails from people that they can't verify if they're a scam or not. Myself, I actually got one from the TV licence this morning telling me that my payment hadn't gone through and that my TV was about to be cut off, and I know very well that I paid in full for a whole year, so I've just deleted it. You can have a look at where the emails come from. If you click right or hover over the email address, it should give you an indication as to whether it's the correct email address or it's come from the right people. All we would advise is if you don't like it, just delete it. Don't click on any links that anyone sends you. The bank will never send you a link to open up your own bank account or go into online banking on a text or an email. They may send you links for products and services, but they wouldn't necessarily send you a link for your own banking. So if you have been sent that, then you delete it. The criminals, unfortunately, are very good at spoofing headers on texts and emails, so you believe it's come from the company that they are saying they're from. Again, if you don't like the look of it, if you haven't engaged with that company, you haven't asked for them to contact you, a bit like the door. If the door goes, if you haven't asked that person to come around, don't answer the door, don't answer the text. The people who are genuine will get hold of you in a different way if they need to. HMRC will never text you, and they will never refund you other than by cheque, to be fair. The HMRC one is a prevalent one around obviously the tax year and when people are doing their books. So that's a big one at the moment, as Helen suggested. And they will persevere until they get your details.
What you need to do is to independently verify who sent you that message. So my advice would be, if you've got a text message purported to be from the bank or wherever, or you've got an email, you need to independently verify where that's come from. So if it's from the bank, look at the back of your bank card, your telephone number is there. If it's from a utility company, get a utility bill that you've had posted to you that you know is genuine, and phone the number back on that, and then ask them if they've tried to contact you. The problem by clicking onto a link is that either you're going to put malware or spyware onto your device, or you're going to be sort of transferred to a website that looks very much like the genuine website, and it will ask you then to start putting your information. What we're finding with these scams at the moment is that they're looking for you to make the payment, but if they can't get you to make the payment, they're looking for information about yourself. So they collect the information, put together a portfolio about you so that they can attack you in a much more sophisticated manner. So the idea is that if you get any unsolicited approaches, be it by text, be it by telephone, be it by post, be it on the doorstep, be very, very cautious before you interact with these people. Also, with regards to text messages, there's a really good number to remember. It's just 4 digits. It's 7726. This is basically if you get any sort of spam text message or any nuisance text messages, so like PPI, or if you've been involved in an accident, if you forward that text message onto your network provider using 7726, regardless of the network provider, they'll actually have a look at that text message, and if they find that it's like a spam text message or a possible fraudulent phishing text message, they'll actually block that number. What that means is that it won't prevent you from getting any more text messages coming through. It just means that person won't be able to use that particular line anymore.
So 7726, we'll all store that in our phones. So Sally, give us an idea of some of the methods you're using to get this message across to people.
We use social media quite a bit to promote, and we've been using Twitter, which is where we've had the connections. And we've also been working with some younger people, with police cadets, and we've been doing some sessions with them about scam awareness, because if we try and teach the young children and the youngsters, especially young adults at the moment, who are all using social media, and the world's a very much smaller place using social media. And unfortunately, scammers don't actually care how old you are. We've had a scam victim as young as 11 in the bank, where he was actually approached at an ATM, and eventually the scammer managed to use the young lad's bank account to put a cheque through. The cheque bounced, But the young lad had already given the money away, and it was £5,000. So he was 11 years old, and unfortunately he hadn't told his parents. And it just shows you what can happen. It doesn't matter. They're not just looking for elderly people. They just need a bank account to be able to put their funds through.
With regards to the younger generation, I think is really important at the moment. As I know Sally's already mentioned about the youngsters being targeted from the age of 11. I think the two biggest areas of concern for the younger parts of the community is money mules, first of all. Unfortunately, there's been an increase in money mules whereby youngsters are being coerced or convinced into either allowing people to rest, inverted brackets, money in their bank account, or to actually sell their debit card and their bank account details. What the youngsters don't realise is that they're actually interfacing with organised criminals. Just give one example of that. I know of a lady whose nephew's second year of university at the moment. He was approached by a friend of a friend at university, asked to look after, I think, £10,000 for a couple of weeks because his friend of a friend had problems with his bank account. The youngster, unfortunately, agreed to do that because he was offered, I think, £500. Sadly for him, he got caught. He's going to court. And what people don't appreciate is that whilst he might not be convicted or be sentenced, if you've been involved with money laundering, all your bank accounts are closed and you're banned from having a bank account for 6 years. So this young guy who's second year of university, if he completes his studies, he's got a lot of problems after that. So we're trying to raise the awareness around money mules, but also ID theft. Lots of youngsters now have mobile phones and iPads and devices, but they don't understand that perhaps the information they're giving or sharing is actually going to be used against them. For instance, Instagram, there's lots of youngsters that download the applications free of charge. We're downloading these applications, they're giving their information to unknown third parties that perhaps we're using their information or selling their information on. People need to understand that information is a valuable commodity now. It's not just something that you should be using lightly or sharing lightly.
And Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, they own your data. They own your pictures once you've passed it on. So they can use it for any campaign, anything they want to. So you do have to be very careful about what you share. And we try and educate the young children about that from very early on.
OK, so if we think we've been targeted by fraud or a scam, what can we do about it?
I would just direct people back to the Trading Standards website. There's a list of resources there because obviously if you feel you've been targeted, you need to report that. And again, there's a website called Action Fraud. Basically, they collect the data with regards to fraud attempts and actual successful frauds as well. The telephone for that is actually 0300 123 2040, but again, it's on the Trading Standards website. Also, if anybody feels that perhaps they know somebody who might be being targeted at the moment, we'd direct them to Citizens Advice Consumer Helpline as well, because there's lots of advice and support there as well. The main thing, though, is basically to speak to people. If you've been approached by somebody, the way these fraudsters, the way these scammers work is that they'll try to isolate you, they'll try to panic you and get you to respond without thinking. There's a statistic at the moment that basically 1 in 4 people who have been victim of scam actually realise immediately they've made that payment, that they've done something wrong. If they contact the banks as soon as that's happened, we can try to protect them as much as we can. But the main thing is if you are approached, speak to a friend, speak to a neighbour. There's nothing that's going to be urgent that you need to respond to immediately. And this is what these guys are trying to get people to do.
And I gather, Sally, there's now a code phrase that bank employees can use if they think someone is being coerced into giving their money away.
Yes, so the banking protocol is now in place where the banks have an agreement with the police. We ring a number, we just say banking protocol, and they will send an officer to the branch. So generally we would use it when we've got a customer in front of us that we believe is either a victim of a scam as they are standing in front of us, that we're aware that somebody's waiting for them outside or at home, and we're concerned about their safety as well as the fact that they won't divulge the information to us. So the police will turn up, they will interview the customer along with us, and 99% of the time we're correct, and they will end up advising us that they have been told to come into the bank, told to take a certain amount of money out. So we have saved a lot of customers their life savings that way, and it's working really well, especially in the London area.
Now, Helen, locally, I know you were saying you get to hear about these scams and frauds through your contact points. Explain about those.
Our job as a dedicated police officer, we have contact points, which are usually in libraries. And we go along where the groups are already there and we talk about crime prevention. And this is exactly how we came across the the scams where people generally talking to us what's happening. That also leads me on to OWL, which is the online watch link, which is a community messaging service that the police have set up over the last year. It's Met wide, and basically if you register yourself, because under the new data protection legislation you have to register yourself now, and your road online, and the online is www.owl.co.uk. It tells you all about it. Register yourself, and I'm in that link as well. So when you pass a message on, I will be in that link as a police officer. So an example would be if you had a scam and you're worried about it, you could then tell your neighbours on the messaging service. I will be linked into that and I would know that information. Quick email, then I will know, and I will know everything that's going on within my ward.
And of course, there's the usual ways of reporting crime as well.
You can report crimes online now and antisocial behaviour. On the Met Police website, met.police.uk, the 101 number is a non-emergency telephone number. Obviously 999 is an emergency. You can contact your local S&T, neighbourhood teams, and there's Crime Stoppers, which is 0800 555 111.
So lots of ways to report crime. Mark, any more resources you can recommend for info on scams and frauds?
Definitely, the Trading Standards website is probably the best place to go to initially. If you just search Friends Against Scams, that would be the first one to come up. But also the Metropolitan Police have produced a book called The Little Book of Big Scams, which I believe is available on the Met Police website. But also you should be able to find it on your bank's frauds website as well. So if you go to your bank, search fraud, there should be a link there.
That sounds good. Helen, any last comments from you?
Just generally, if any groups within Hayes, Charville area wants any talks, we're quite happy to come along to give talks regarding crime prevention, scams or anything of interest within your ward.
Well, thanks so much to Sally Schofield and Mark Mullally from NatWest, and PC Helen Low for hosting us here at Hayes Police Station. I've certainly learnt a lot about fraud and scams, and I'm off now to sign up for OWL. If you'd like to contact Helen, Mark or Sally about coming to your community group to give a talk, you'll find them on social media. That was an Uxbridge FM production. You can find more of our programmes on our website at uxbridgefm.co.uk.